12 minutes or thereabouts. But let's get back to the conversation in the U.S. markets, because what a November it has been. We saw, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up about 11+% for the month so far. The S&P 500 up about 9% so far. David Dietze, founder and chief investment strategist from Point View Wealth Management, joins us, speaking from Summit, New Jersey. David, it has been a terrific November. Do you expect that performance to continue? Because the market seems to be struggling at the last few days, or at least during this week.
Well, certainly when we're having the best November that we've seen since 1938, you have to expect the rate of progress to reduce just a little bit. But I think we've got a lot going for us here, which is the hope that these vaccine announcements from Pfizer and Moderna will soon get emergency use authorization from the FDA. In fact, some of it may be available before year end. It will take, of course, a very long time before it's widely distributed through the population. So that's certainly allowing companies and individuals to make plans. And I think that's going to give a bit of a tailwind to the markets. Of course, this is a very strong seasonal period, Adam, where the bulk of the stock market gains historically have been made between, let's say, November 1 through April 30th. And of course, we're in that period. There's also been another big key uncertainty, which has been clarified a little bit, which is who's going to be our next president. We now have President-elect Joe Biden. We were told, of course, that it was going to be a blue wave. He would be able to do a lot because he would also control the Senate. That's not so clear. In fact, it looks like there's going to be a divided government. We've got some big elections coming up in terms of the runoff in Georgia, January 5th. The thought is that even if the Republicans hold on to the Senate, historically the market's been done very well with a divided government. However, that may limit the prospect for some stimulus.
Yeah, well, I was just about to ask that question, because we still don't have that stimulus, even though Chuck Schumer saying that, Mitch McConnell going to come back to the table to negotiate. But here we are, and we still don't have anything. Let's face it, do you think the market cares more about central bank stimulus or fiscal stimulus? I mean, what matters more to the markets here? Because with a divided Congress, you're just saying that we may not get any stimulus.
Well, let's rank all these issues in order. The vaccine is 1, 2, and 3. After that, in terms of the central bank stimulus, they've done just about all they can do. The interest rates are pinned down close to zero. They're buying about $120 billion a month of government and agency paper. So the fiscal stimulus certainly would help us bridge this gap before the vaccine is widely distributed. Now, I'm as optimistic as the next guy, but, quite frankly, we needed that 2 months ago. Why didn't we get it? And how have those issues now changed? I think the only thing that can get people back to the table quickly is a big spike up in the unemployment rate. Quite frankly, we've seen that unemployment rate coming down, suggesting things are getting better. This morning, however, we did see a tick up in the weekly unemployment claims, which suggests there is some faltering here in the recovery. Quite frankly, it's going to be difficult to come together on any big stimulus bill, because I think it's still a very polarized political situation here. Mr. Trump has very little interest in doing anything during this lame duck session. Then will Mitch McConnell change his tune and want to have, in a spirit of bipartisanship, a big stimulus bill to help the Biden presidency? We will see. I don't know.
All right. Well, with the lack of stimulus, but with the vaccine on the horizon, how do your stock picks, I'm looking at the list, they look rather eclectic, Exxon, Gilead, Intel, Wells Fargo, fit into the major drivers of how the market is going to perform into the back end of 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of driving, let's start with Exxon. People say, well, what is going to be the catalyst to get a stock like Exxon up? Well, quite simply, one of the biggest holidays in the United States is next week, Thanksgiving. And people are being told, stay at home. Last month, we saw 14% less miles driven. People aren't flying. They're staying with their immediate family members. Of course, that means you don't go to the pump to fill up your car. That means, of course, the aircraft are sitting in the hangars. what can we expect a year from now? Well, if these vaccines come online, the first thing Americans are going to want to do is go out and celebrate Thanksgiving and drive across the country and get on the plane and see their family that they haven't been able to see for a year. What will that do to crude oil prices? That's going to push them up dramatically. Right now, no drilling, no exploration is going on. Between the pandemic and the threat that the Biden administration will create a more green energy atmosphere, there's been a complete halt. But low prices, stopping drilling will ultimately push those crude oil prices up. And so a stock like Exxon down 45% with a 9.3% dividend looks like a good bet to move higher over the next 12 months, as an example.
Right, and it's interesting that you've got Intel in the mix there because tech has been, of course, the darling of the rally so far. But, you know, I characterize Intel as sort of the nuts and bolts in technology, not quite the new fangs of this world. Why is that?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, but we know that every day we're using more technology. So I love the idea of betting on the nuts and bolts and not the new fang, because then you don't have to worry about the new fang going out of style. Here you've got a stock that's down 21%. A dividend yield at close to 3%, trading at 9 times earnings, which is involved in, is the market share leader in terms of PCs, in terms of servers. It's going to play a major role in terms of autonomous driving, artificial intelligence. So you've got a great play on technology, but without the big problem of it today, which is the hypervaluations. So I think Intel is a good bet going forward.
I appreciate the investment strategy, David, and you have a good Friday when it comes around, all right? I look forward to talking to you again soon. That was David Dietze, founder and chief investment strategist from Point View Wealth. What's still ahead on